lately we've been going into a bit of relationship and some of the man-woman partner ring thing. This is for a reason at the moment within the group here. And I have in mind to shift soon at some point, at whatever point, shift soon back into directionality with the four phases. But for those who are paying attention and applying to any of the points relevant within past videos, ought to, of course, be observing the subconscious impulses, tracing back their origination, past experience and trauma wounds, becoming aware of the process of that and the makeup of that within the physiology. Becoming aware is the key. There's not much else you can do with the trauma wounds internally. It's simply through awareness, recognition, that it then becomes conscious and it starts to unfold and unfurl within you. And the patterns, the dysfunctional patterns, programs, behaviors, thought processes and perceptions just begin to break down and dissolve. So it is the awareness that resolves. So remaining aware. And of course I communicated a couple of steps of how we can become more aware of the shadow of the subconscious impulses within us. That is through the dark park exercise I spoke about. It's about facing fears, whatever they may be. One of the big ones for many of us is public speaking, public communication. Absolutely was for me, but as you can see, I've completely overcome that. But this brings up the fears. And the fears, for instance, the fears and the perception and interpretation of the fears, just say you're stepping into public speaking or you're going into the dark park exercise, you might have some fearful imaginings about certain circumstances of, I am not going to go into this dark park because I'll get raped, I'll get beaten up, I'll get lost or whatever. The fears come up. And you see the nature of the fearful imaginings, the false evidence appearing real. And you can see what you're conjuring up and what your fears actually are. And so through awareness, they begin to break down and begin to dissolve. But on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis, of course, we're encouraged to be observant of our behavioral hostilities. It's quite simple. Anything that we would determine as being negative behavior, negative emotion, anger, frustration, impatience, resentment, hatred, spite, guilt, arrogance, all of these things, like I said in a video previously, these are just words. We go, oh yeah, arrogant, yeah, hateful. But if you detect through your introspections any of these behaviors, then try and recognize, don't try anything, just do. Recognize what these actually are, what hatred is, what is resentment, and really come to know about it and know what it is beyond just the word description of it, So as you're going about your day, any of these impulses come up, then you go, oh, right, you recognize it. And so you don't act them out. There's the video about emotions, handling emotion. We do not act out any emotion. You know, we allow the emotion to come up or to be triggered or to express as a move, simply as a movement of energy within us. And we remain steady in face of that. We do not act out in accordance with the emotion. So anger is coming up, we're going to be angry. You know, hatred is there, so we start acting out in hatred, spite. You know, why act out on these emotions? Destructive, chaotic. So the handling of all emotion is to recognize that it is energy that's moving and to remain steady and not act out in accordance with the emotion. You know, there's somebody acting out in accordance with anger, jealousy, spite, hatred. You know, it makes no sense to do that. So remain steady, remain clear. And if you're in interrelational circumstance, remain silent, you know, and allow the energy of the emotions to pass through, you know. You just remain steady and you do not act out. And so, like I mentioned, then you go, well, where is that coming from? That anger, that hatred, that disdain, that resentment, that arrogance. You know, then you can go to your quiet spot, your quiet space, your quiet place, and then, you know, do the deeper introspection to really understand what it is, really understand the impulse, the tendency. No, you don't need to go too crazy with the mind trying to think it all through, but just recognize, well, why am I so spiteful in my interrelationships? Where does that spite? Understand what spite is. I've explained before what spite is, but become aware of and understand how it is, how it sits within you physiologically, in your mind, how it acts out. You know, and then trace back in your own internal experience what that spite may be the result of, what past experience, past trauma, you know, created that wound, basically, within you. And again, through awareness of that and actually tracing back, if you get to the origination of certain impulses and behavioral hostilities internally, you know, then you can apply a bit of forgiveness to the experience, you know, forgiveness to the mother, to the father, to the person that wronged you in the past, or the people that wronged you in the past. The forgiveness experience I'm going to speak about actually next, and communicate and exercise about forgiveness, which supports the awareness and the undoing, the releasing of the emotion, past trauma, and things like that. But I've got a really handy way of going about that, so I'll communicate that later. So this is the track that we ought to be on in the group at the moment from the phase 2 experience. We're doing a lot of relative circumstance, situational, relative context at the moment. You know, we'll progress on to phase 3 and progress into phase 4 and communicate a little bit more interesting woo-woo topics, you know. But the thing that's important is the application of will in the resolution process. And we all need to do it to some regard. We all need to do it fully, absolutely, completely and fully, you know. Me too. So this one is communicated for the guys. It's communicated for the guys and the women. The women, handy for reflection. For the guys, necessary for the application of, right? So the wounded feminine side. So taking that, we have the masculine and we have the feminine within our physiology, physioenergetic system, left side, feminine, right side, masculine, if you want to go into that detail, but we will be looking at it here from more a behavioral perspective and in relation with women and with the feminine within ourselves, women, externally. So the wounded feminine within men, I'll give a quick personal example. Through my phase 2 experience, there came a point where I recognized through my own inner sight that my left side, feminine side, was completely black, energetically wounded, like disabled. Significantly so. When I saw it, I was shocked. My whole left side, energetically, absolutely terribly wounded, energetically black. I was disabled on the left side, completely kinesiologically weakened. My trauma wounds were on the left side, feminine side, from all past rejections, in relating with women, the rejection from my mother, we passed. My mother and father divorced, and there was a lot of family things, and my mother and father, when they split, I lost connection with my mother. So my mother went this way, my father went this way, and I went with my father. So I didn't have the mother in my life and in my experience when I was a young child and throughout my growing years. So I had that wound, had that experience. I know we've all got different dynamics of this type of thing in our past trauma and experience of our lives. So for me, I have really been carrying a very significantly wounded feminine side that I have had to completely apply myself to resolving over the years as part of my phase 2. But it was absolutely black, weakened, like disabled. So I had this inherent weakness within me. My masculine side, I would consider myself strong, capable, able. And in my life experience, I have most of the time in the company of men and other men, most of the time I would naturally express into a leadership dynamic when I'm in the company of men, and it's always been like that. So when I've been in the company of men, I've been alpha, When in the company of women, I've been beta because of the weakened side. Strange. Well, not strange, but it's strange why we alpha in the company of men, and I will be like leading and directing and supporting and encouraging, and when in the company of men, whether it be in sports, whether it be in gang fights, whether it be in whichever boisterous activities in my younger years. But when in the company of women, it's like I've just weakened it. I just could not express in an assured, clear and in an assured way, because when in the company of women, then I would physiologically, my consciousness would go into my feminine side, and it would get really stuck there because of the woundedness, and it was chaotic, and so my relationships with women have been train wrecks all of my life because of this,
because of this woundedness and the characteristics of that woundedness. So as I said, this video is mainly for men, but it's an adequate reflection for women as well, because you obviously need to deal with men. But women, I recognize, they are quite aware of the weakness of men because they've had to deal with it all of their lives, and they've had to compensate for the weakness in men by developing a strength and capability and responsibility within themselves, And that's why we have found in the Western world mostly that there's a lot of weak men that are subservient to women. They put them on pedestals and they're like, and there's a lot of women that are, so there's a lot of feminized men in the West that just have not resolved through their weakness, their feminine woundedness, and they're living in that feminine way. So many feminine characteristics. Women who have had to compensate for the weakness in men have developed more masculine characteristics. So it's become a bit botched, mostly in the Western world, where the polarities have switched and become dysfunctional, right? Anyway, so in my experience, because of this wounding within me, my relationships with women have always ended up in emotional train wrecks, simply because I haven't been able to conduct myself rightfully and clearly as a man, and from the masculine side, because I've always been pulled into this weakness in the feminine side, unresolved trauma, My mother and father, when they divorced, young, I went to stay with my father, but my father he didn't take fathering responsibility, rightful fathering responsibility. And so I ended up being cared for and looked after by my grandparents since the age of 8 up until my early 20s, when I was then able to go and do my own thing. And mainly my grandparents, it was my grandmother who loved and cared for me, and she was my main parent most of the time. My grandfather was there, he'd never got involved, unless he had to give me into trouble for something, which is the way it ought to be. Man-woman role and dynamics. So my grandmother was always there, caring for me, loving for me, and encouraging my life, and she was my parents. My grandmother actually was my parents. She was a primary person. Well, she's a very sweet, kind, and petite woman. In my life with my grandmother, I wasn't learning masculine traits. I was learning mostly feminine traits, and she would bring me up to be polite and respectful, toward anybody. Be polite, speak respectfully, She really instilled that in me big time, to a fault, Not from her perspective, but it was implemented within me, to a fault, because later it just became this weak people-pleasery attitude that I then had, So with that wounding, with the mother leaving and me feeling the rejection from that as a kid, and then living with my grandmother, it was all feminine, and my wounded feminine. I've also got 3 sisters as well. So lots of women, feminine, and so much of that rubbed off in me, influenced me. And so when I grew up, in my 20s, 30s, and onwards, I had many feminine characteristics where my default was my default expression with things, and I had this politeness and stuff going on as well that I learned from my grandmother, polite conduct and things, which is correct, but it all kind of added up in the mush to weakness, and to the expression of weakness within me, particularly when in the experience of and presence and the relating with women. I just couldn't relate with women properly because I was broken on this side, and it was just chaos. I just could not relate with women. I would just go into all sorts of internal twists and connotations of being, and I just didn't know how to be, didn't know who I was. I just couldn't be myself in the company of women. I just botched up completely. So that all had to be straightened out in later years when I became more aware of it, So like I mentioned in my phase 2 intensity, I recognized the woundedness, shocked by it actually. And I also at one point recognized where when I broke up from my partner, which I spoke about in the other video, I left my partner and my daughter, and I moved on in my own experience, living life on my own, which I'd done a few times in periods past through employment. I've worked in different places, different countries through my employment. And so I would be like for 6 months, I would be in this country doing a particular contract, 3 months in this country doing a particular contract. And so I would be like living and fending for myself, but only for these short periods. But I was still very connected, either to my partner, or to my grandmother in my life while I was away for short stints, through employment. So, I was never completely loose and free and sustaining myself in my own life, within my own council of being, within my own council of doing. There was always a woman there, There was always a woman that was like taking much of the responsibility for me, in my affairs and my dealings and my handling with things, And anything that I was left to do on my own in my living, it's just like haphazard, Nothing would be taken care of properly, like bill paying and shopping and cleaning the house, or any of these life living domestic affairs, looking after oneself. It was haphazard when I was left to my own devices in that regard. Whatever. And I would focus on other things that I was doing, because I always had a woman there that took care of all of these things, often to a fault, for them and their own experience, taking like too much responsibility and care. But that's kind of going off track a little bit, similar, but a little bit off track. And here, from the man perspective, I'm expressing in this video. So there came a time, just as I was stepping into my phase 2 experience, where I broke up from my partner and I moved on, and I then went to really truly live on my own, for the first time, really truly live completely on my own. My grandmother had passed by this point. She was no longer with us, split up from the long-term partner. Simply, it was just me, myself, and I. And so when I moved up north into the Highlands of Scotland, which I did, I then had to take care of getting a house, renting an apartment, a flat, buying a car, organising the bill payments, food, everything, So all of these things were on me. And I had to do it as my own life, as my own living, as my own domestic life, living, survival within society. And what I found was. It didn't come to me just like this to know what to do. I mean, these things are simple, you know, like paying for bills, you know, registering for this and that, you know, within society, the domestic stuff, organizing like electricity supply, network supply, broadband, paying tax, council tax as it is in the UK, taking care of all of these affairs didn't come naturally for me. In fact, what I found, and I remember the very moment of the day where I had all of these things to do, and I couldn't do them. You know, I just never had the awareness, the consciousness to get it done. And I in a particular moment recognized that there was a gap, there was a hole, something missing within me that was related to these particular, fulfilling these particular activities and actions in my life. There was like something was missing within me that just made the experience of taking care, taking responsibility for all of the things myself, for all of the things in my own life, made that difficult. I was void from it, you know, and it had a physiological effect. It's like part of me wasn't there, was unable to express, and therefore was unable to figure out clearly and do and carry out and make happen. So I recognized when I had that moment, I recognized immediately what it was. It's because, you know, that is where the woman always was, whether it be my grandmother or my long-term partner, took up that space and that place within my physiology, mind and psychology. They would prop me up in my life by being in that space and taking care of all that. And I wouldn't take care of all that, you know, and I would live mostly in a haphazard way, you know, doing other things. So I therefore had to overcome that. I recognized the gap in my experience. There's nobody there to take care of all of these things, to catch me, you know, when I was falling and things. I had to step in there myself. But I recognized what it was. And so I could push myself to do it. Simple as it is. You go register for like council tax and rental contracts and things like that. I mean, I knew what they were, you know, logically, but it's just a very strange experience. So I had to like go, I'm going to do that, you know, prioritize the organization of my life experience within society, these domestic affairs, etc., within society and within my life living, you know. I had to apply myself to that for the first time in my life, in my late 20s, you know. So that was a period of time to realize that aspect of self, you know, and to have everything organized. And so when I did that, I mean, it was quite straightforward enough to flip and to resolve on a practical level, you know. But the physical, energetic, psychic, psychological and level of consciousness within me had to be filled, had to be brought back within me, you know. And that was part of as well of this feminine woundedness and weakness within me. I had to bring life and strength back into my life consciousness, into my clear life consciousness, into my feminine side, into that other aspect of self. So, and that was more of a process over time, a long time, resolving the weak feminine woundedness within me. So obviously, this is a bit later on in life now, I take care of everything, you know, all of these things, all of my life affairs in every regard, to an absolute pinpoint, keep on top of it all the time, clear, get it done way. Not a problem. And I didn't have that attitude back then or ability back then. I had to grow into the experience of that. Now I know the women watching this video, you recognize it. You didn't. I do believe it's been my experience that women are more aware of this within men than men actually are themselves. You know. But for a lot of men, you know, we have not had this guidance and this information in our lives to be prepared for this. There's always been a woman like catching us or mopping up after us, or, you know, taking care of us in that way. And we've never been had to do it for ourselves. Many of us not, or for a particular period of life. But we ought to, you know, we ought to. And of course, within the phase 2 process and experience, we ought to become observant and aware of the woundedness within ourselves, and that might lead to the recognition of woundedness within the feminine part of our physiology. But that's in our own experience, recognition and realization of. That occurs and happens in your experience, you know, and you recognize, well, I kind of got that as well, Ronnie, you know, I'm dealing with that at the moment, sort of thing, you know. Feedback, if you wish to, within the group, and I can further elaborate, guide, and offer direction on the resolution of these particular dynamics, because I've gone deep into it and I've resolved most of it in my own being. So it's becoming self-reliant. As easy it is, becoming absolutely self-reliant on every level. You know, imagine the experience where the woman is not in your life, whether it be, you know, whatever the woman, whatever her role, whether it be your mother, her partner, her sister, or whatever. You know, if you're in the experience of this just now, imagine them not in your life. You've got to take care of everything in the experience, which is no issue. You know, it ought not to be an issue. It ought to be something that you get done, and you get it done quickly. You get it done swiftly and clearly, and you stay on track, you know, and in charge, managing your life experience in that way. That's where it ought to be, you know, for yourself. Self-reliance, efficiency, you know. So the other thing as well, with the wounded feminine, broken feminine side within us, it causes chaos in our interactions. It causes chaos in interactions and relationship with women, you know, that weak side of ourselves. So, like I said, in my experience, I have been alpha in the company of colleagues, comrades, and other men, but beta in my experience with women, you know, cause of the weakness, unresolved weakness, and not knowing how to behave, how to act, how to express, because my relationships with women past my grandmother, and, you know, it's like they're taking care of everything, so you kind of go, they take care of everything, and then let them do it, and you just go, yeah, whatever, you know, and you're taken care of, and you don't need to think about it, and, you know, or they're taking care of you and mothering you and smothering you in some cases, you know, and you've not got much thinking to do for yourself, because the woman is taking care of all these things, you know, mostly from that life living, home living experience, which takes up most of our experience, you know. So we might be good if we're like a joiner or an electrician or an IT manager or something. We might be good at our thing, you know, as a man doing that. That's a percentage of our life experience. But all the rest of it, you know, the woman is taken care of and taking care of it. And therefore, we don't need to. And the woman, if whatever she's doing, the activities of that and taking care, she might say, no, you do it. She'll give you direction, orders and things to do. And you might like just go, yeah, all right, you know, and you become in a subservient place, you know, as a man in the dynamic of relationship with a woman, you know.
You're in a, no, I don't know the word I can't remember the word that I'm looking for. You're more submissive. When that woman is looking after you and she's taking charge, you're more submissive. Yeah, okay, and yeah, I'll get it done. Whatever it is, and you're falling into being a submissive and secondary and receiving guidance and direction for your life from the woman. you know and the woman, she's busy, she's doing her thing, and most of the time she doesn't care about that. She's like, you know she may step more and more, especially in partnership, more and more. If you're not taking charge, if you're letting her make the decisions and do all the things, then she may, and I find this with a lot of women, I have found this with a lot of women, more and more step into that being in charge role and more of the masculine dynamic. And so she's like ordering you and directing the way forward in the life experience and in the partnership and what you're doing, and basically putting you out of a job as a man. You put yourself out of the job as a man. So the woman may take more and more of that masculine role. And the man herself, because of the weakness, unresolved, and their non-recognition and awareness of the dynamics, put ourselves into that more submissive role. And it's easy. We get lazy and she takes care of it. She takes all the responsibility, and you just like do what she asks every now and again. No? Wow. Ugh. So that is occurring within a relational dynamic, that's occurring within anyone's here, any guys here, relational dynamic. You need to straighten that up, man. The things I'm speaking about need to be resolved within yourself, and you cannot, it is dysfunctional for you to be in a submissive role, not taking responsibility and not taking charge of yourself and within the responsibilities within the relationship. It's dysfunctional if that's not happening. And it's dysfunctional if the woman is, because you have this inherent weakness and psychological blind side. The woman is left with no choice but to step more into taking charge and being responsible, telling you what to do, defining the road ahead and things. She's left, she has to compensate for that, for what's missing, in order for things to be somewhat functional and moving forward. So it's dysfunctional for the woman to go into the masculine role and for the man to remain in a feminine role. It's dysfunctional. It creates chaos in relationship and partnership, and no doubt that partnership will come to an end at some point, because the woman, while she is capable of handling practicalities and doing things, she physiologically is not built for that role in the same way as a man is. And like a man is not built for the feminine role the same way as a woman is. This is a physiological thing, this is consciousness in itself, and there's nothing to do with any of the talking points or controversy, that you see on social media about men and women. So I'm not going to go into that. It's nature. We're talking about naturalness, their natural nature, where the man in his masculine is straight, clear, strong, rational. He's in charge, and he knows what is happening in the experience of himself in the partnership. He is there as a steady rock for the woman, for the children, for people to rely on. He knows what's happening. He remains on the ball. He plots the steps ahead because he is built for that in his consciousness. Men are head-centered in their consciousness.
So it's about clear sight and pursuit and strength, and that strength and that presence of the masculine naturally gives safety, support, presence, and strength to the woman and to the ones that rely on him, are in relationship with him. So he is the pillar of strength by nature, by nature. Now, he's not going to be that clear pillar of strength by nature if he is so wounded in his feminine side, so his interaction with women are going to be distorted. His relationships with women are going to be, the polarity is going to be flipped. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be dysfunctional, toxic, and it's going to end. That's what I found in all of my relationships. Train wrecks have just all ended up as emotional train wrecks, because I have not been in that space and place of clear masculine aptitude and strength. So that I have had to resolve into over the years through the experience of what I mentioned in here. And it hasn't been easy. It's been one of the most challenging, difficult things because I've been so blindsided to it, so not aware of it, never received any guidance, masculine guidance, from my father or from society or from anywhere at all. I had to learn, recognize and realize it and apply, integrate, embody and be it through my own will, recognition and learning. So, if in your experience, in partnership, in self, guys, you are not straight, you're not clear, you're not on top of everything. If you have a woman that is basically taking up that masculine role, directing the relationship, directing your lives, and the one that is in charge telling you what to do, then that is a reflection of how straight you are not. That is a reflection. If you have a woman that is in your experience, she's taking charge and telling you what to do and things like that, that's a red flag for you to resolve into your masculine. You don't need to fight against her about who's in charge and who's making choices and decisions and things like that. You need to resolve within yourself these things that I covered in this video so that you are naturally masculine and you're naturally in that place and space. That pillar of strength and aptitude, and that will not have a natural influence on the women, if you're in partnership, on the females around you and the males as well. That will have a natural influence of where they go, they can rest a little bit, and because you are clearly displaying the fact that you're in charge, you know what is going on, you have the clear insight and rationality to make the right decisions, to plot the right course, and after a while, she will recognize that and she will become more trusting of that. So if you've been in an experience with a woman where it's been flipped and the other way around, she doesn't trust your strength, aptitude, clear-sightedness, she's had to take care of it herself. So to resolve and flip that back to nature's way will take a bit of time, for it. It's not going to happen overnight. If you've got a woman that's like she's accustomed to stepping into the masculine, and if you're beginning to resolve your weak feminine and submissiveness and come back into your natural masculine, it's going to create a bit of friction. If she's taking up that space, it's going to create a bit of friction. You're kind of gently pushing back on her a little bit, and stepping more and more into that space, taking more and more responsibility for things of what you ought to. I don't mean more and more responsibility of all of the menial tasks and things like that, more and more responsibility for the course direction of self and of the shared life experience you have with the lady, with the woman, and it's not about controlling her. It's not about it's not about control at all. It's just the natural way of masculine feminine dynamics. So if you're in a dysfunctional place where the roles are flipped and you're resolving that, there's going to be a bit of friction. If she's not completely aware of what is going on, and what you're actually doing and why, she's just going to see it. It's just going to go, it's a strange feeling. As you're stepping into that role, it's pushing her out of the role in consciousness, psychically and in consciousness. It's pushing back on her without you pushing back on her. But if you're stepping into that consciousness, she needs to step out of it, and if she doesn't know, she's not aware, she doesn't know what's going on, it can cause, trouble, situations, emotional reactivity and things. She's got to learn to shift back into her feminine, where her natural strengths, capabilities, and attributes are, as you shift back into your natural masculine. So that needs to occur within the dynamics of your relationship. It will help to become clear about it yourself first, recognize and understand the dynamics of yourself first, put into place the healing resolution of any woundedness weakness that you recognize is a factor of that experience. Become clear in yourself first, start resolving the associated woundedness, and the more clear you become, you can then it's not easy I found it's not easy to open up the conversation with the woman, with the partner, and say, look, I'll take care of that, you go do this. There'll be there probably will be resistance on her part, especially if she's used to doing it all and dictating the gameplay. So be aware that when you step into that role, the natural masculine, that there will automatically be resistance on her part. And it's not her fault, because she's had to do what she's had to do in order for the survival of herself, the children that are involved, and you both. So if you're getting resistance from her, that's it. That's to be expected, You can be compassionate towards that. Not weak, not emotionally people-pleasing, compassionate. You can recognize it from your heart. But you always maintain your strength, clear strength. Always be in the masculine within your experience. Always be in the masculine. That's not to say you become some sort of dictator, an internal world physiological thing. Always be clear-minded. Always strive internally for clear-mindedness. Naturally, your consciousness will naturally recognize the situation you're in, will recognize the experience in your environment, if it is safe, if it is this, or if it is that, safe for you, safe for your partner, safe for the children. These things are natural instincts in men, in the natural masculine. So you don't need to be anything. You just need to resolve and become clear within yourself. And these natural masculine attributes come to be, So I won't define so much what they are, but encourage you to become clear within because I don't want you to kind of follow it from an idealistic sense. I encourage you to become clear-minded is the primary thing within yourself, guys. Become clear-minded, and therefore and strive for clear-mindedness all of the time. And in terms of responsibilities of things that need to be done, get them done immediately. Do not rest, do not procrastinate. Keep on top of things, get everything done, and know what your next steps forward are. Deal with yourself, right? Before the dynamics of the relationship, if you're flipping the polarities of the partnership. Get clear-minded in your meditations, your walk in nature. Affirm clear-mindedness. Any and all of your responsibilities, get them absolutely done.
Keep an absolute top of everything. Do not waste time. Do not procrastinate. Laziness, weakness, is a sign of the wounded feminine within you guys. So you cannot be lazy. You cannot be, procrastination cannot be the case. Clear-mindedness, keep on top of everything and know what your next steps are. All right? Clear-mindedness, keep on top of everything, get everything done, no matter how challenging or difficult it is. Get everything done and know what your next steps are. So replay this little bit, because that is the instruction here that will move you forward and that will straighten you up. Strive for clear-mindedness, get everything done that you need to do, always keep on top of your responsibilities and know what your next steps are. Simply by that, you'll begin to resolve more and more into your natural masculine. And as you resolve in that, you can do that on your own. As you resolve in that way, it will have a natural influence upon the partner if you're in the experience of partnership, or it will have the natural influence in any of your relationships around you. You don't need to try and make them change. If you're like shifting into your natural masculine and you're feeling resistance from her, don't challenge her on it. Don't you rest in the knowing of what is happening. You know what is happening. You know what's happening. Allow it to be. Allow the process to be. Don't fight against her if she's being like resistant or still trying to be in charge and tell you what. Don't fight against it. Don't be saying, I should be doing that. I should be doing that. Don't do that. Obviously, that is weak as shit. Don't do that. Don't even say anything to her. You have the understanding. You act on the understanding, taking full responsibility for yourself in relation to that. She will eventually, her consciousness will eventually adapt, and her behaviours will eventually adapt. It's a process. So it's not going to be a week or two. It's going to be months, maybe a year or something. You focus on yourself, straightening up yourself in these ways that I mentioned just a minute ago here. And that's where you go. That's where you go. If she's telling you what to do, and that's from that kind of masculine thing, women are not good at being men. Men are not good at being women. So, if she's like telling you what to do, she's defining the next steps and things like that. Don't push against her and resist. Remain silent in relation. Don't take it on. Bless her. Within your own heart, don't be blessing her and being weak and people-pleasy, But recognise, don't be angry when she's doing it. But don't take to her ways of doing that, Don't need to be resistant. You don't need to be anything. Just allow it to kind of drop off you. If she's telling you what to do and defining the next steps, just ignore it, Don't be ignorant towards her, but just lightly ignore it and continue what you know is the right things and is the right steps, So this can be a challenging phase and period, And above all, go back to the previous videos. Never project blame upon your partner, Never complain, never project blame, never project anger towards your partner. You need to become clear within your emotional handlings. And this is really recent videos that I've done. These all add together. And the emotional handling, emotional intelligence, whilst you're dealing with the practical dynamics of your own healing resolution, your own partnership, and your own circumstantial life experience. So there's been a lot actually covered in the past 3 or 4 videos that really support the life of a natural masculine, and they're also supportive, for the women, for the feminine in the group as well. It's, the videos are unisex. We each take from it what draws to us, what sticks to us. But these videos are quite key. actually. If you're relating to some of what I'm saying, watch these videos a couple of times, because these are the things that need to click into your being, and you're straightening up into natural masculine. And it's key: never blame, never complain, and never be angry towards your woman, your partner. Never do that. Handle your emotions. Remain steady. Allow the energy to pass through. Remain clear. Know what needs to be done now. Get the things done that need to be done now. Get them done immediately, on point, efficiently, completely, no matter how difficult they are. Know what the next steps are and move in those next steps, and she can move in those next steps with you if she chooses. If she doesn't, continue anyway. No complaining, no blaming, no frustration, no anger towards her in any regard. She will come round. Particularly if your recognition, you know what the next steps are clearly, and they are working out, then she can recognize that. She's got to regain trust in you, in your masculine. She's lost trust. If she is the masculine one, she's acting out that. She's lost trust in you. She's taken the initiative for herself, for the children, for the partnership. So there's a lot to flip around there, and you need to be patient, and non-confrontational. You need to stand your ground, non-bending as well. Never put yourself into that submissive position. Never do it. That's the feminine dynamic. Always remain in your masculine. Never put yourself in a submissive dynamic. Always remain in your masculine. Of course, if she's asking you to do something, can you please take care of, fixing the cupboard or taking care of this, whatever practicality? Of course, yes, and you do it 100%. You get it done, because these are activities where it's built for you to do, especially where there's strength and fixing involved. No, I'm not saying that women can't do these things, right? So let's not go into the controversy about that's so prevalent on social media. It's got nothing to do with that. Just keep on course with the natural dynamic. You're not going to say, well, yeah, but women they can be masculine. They've got masculine and things. Yeah, they have. Forget it. We're actually considering the primary dynamic of a man, the primary dynamic of a woman, And in this case, in this context, I'm speaking about men. Remain in your clear masculine, and that's it. That will give more opportunity and influence to her resolving and recognizing her clear feminine, But shifting that is supporting her ability to be able to trust you. And you should not take it personally that she does not trust you. You just recognize the fact, well, you have not been that person of clear masculine. So it's your responsibility. Resolve within yourself. Don't try and change her. Don't try and change the relationship. Just shift and change yourself. Resolve. Step into that natural masculine through the ways I've spoken about in this video, and it will come to be. And it's a process. It's not overnight. It's a process. All right. Okay, that's it. Thank you.